We're live now. Thank you,
That's
Chair.
lovely. Thank you very much. Okay, and good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for coming along. So first thing I have on the agenda, apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies?
We do, Chair. We have apologies from councillors Hussain, Thompson, McIntyre and Waters. And for the trade unions, we have Julie Wynn for GMB and Dutton Rothwell from Unison.
Right, okay. But we're expecting Brian Fulger, presumably, in a minute. Okay. Any declarations of interest? Okay. If not, we'll move on to the minutes. You should all have had a copy of the minutes. First of all, we'll go through and just check to make sure there's no problems on accuracy, and then I'll ask matters arising. So page 3, any accuracy? Page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, the long minutes, page 9 and page 10. Okay, so in which case have we got a matters arising? Page 3, which is the first page of the minutes. Are there many matters arising? I have one, John, and that is chair requested clarification be sought by Nicola Finnegan as regards the working from home procedure. Is that already sorted, or will that come up later in the agenda?
I think it's on the agenda, David.
On the agenda, right? That's lovely. Okay, we'll come to that. Page 2. Any matters arising? I have only one. Has he and right now been trained? That's health and safety plan.
Yeah. I'll cover that in the report. Yep, that's right.
That's sorted. And then page 5. Any matters arising? Okay. Page 6. Any matters arising? I'm going to bring up the issue regarding the bridge. That's under our agenda 4, as far as I see, John. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Right. Okay, that's fair enough. And also the issue about the terms of reference on the subcommittee equally is in the agenda. Yep. So number 7. Has anybody else got any issues on that page? Page 7. Again, I think the issue about the lifting legal position there could be raised on item 4. Page 8. Any queries? Page 9. I know the item regarding the roof is also on the agenda, so we can take that there. And finally, 10. And again, the item regarding the subcommittee is also effectively on the agenda, so we'll take that back. Has there anybody got anything they want to raise on the minutes? In which case, we'll move on. So item 3, transport to bridge. There's 2 issues really here. And if you look at the minutes, it's actually on page 6. And I expressed concerns really at the time as to whether the bridge was fit for purpose. And we were told that action had been taken here. And there are various comments here on page 6. I just wanted to check whether, in fact, this is now implemented. So, John, you may be in a position to help me on here. If we look at the item regarding how could any future problems happen, it says responsibility for the bridge lies with one director, which I think is now the case.
That's correct.
10-year maintenance plan has been derived. Does that mean set up or?
I'm not really in a position to answer that, David.
Who would be?
I know that we did invite Jeff Field, who's the Director of Environment and Commercial Services, and David Jameson to the meeting, but David shown is offline, and Jeff hasn't attended, so
Right.
they would be in the position to answer them questions rather than
Can we-
myself.
Can we make a note of that at the end of the meeting? Those questions need to be put to them. I'm not sure what the procedure is. But Rob.
Yeah.
Rob wants to come in.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding a transporter bridge, oh, I've lost my picture. Can you still hear me? Oh, I'm back.
Yes,
I've just returned an email to Make a Smile saying that despite the fact that I requested some time ago both the mayor and Mika to be involved in this, because not only am I probably the most experienced person regarding structural steel on the council, I'm also probably the most experienced at what went on in 2011-12 with what went on with the work that was carried out. And I have still ongoing concerns, particularly with the gondola. Having said all that, I've been excluded from the panel that's looking into this. I've just returned, just as I say, sent an email off to her today to say it seems to me that I've been excluded because people don't want me there, because I might upset people by coming up with stuff that they don't want to know about. So that's where I am with it. And I have to say, I've repeatedly raised concerns about the safety of the gondola, because there was no actual structural repairs or whatever. We were promised a brand new gondola, and that didn't happen. We retained everything as old, apart from the top, which was dressed out with an extra 15 ton of steel. When previous to that, wagons were stopped from going on that bridge because of its age, to reduce the weight load. Now, that's just total nonsense. So that's where we are as far as I'm concerned. I am seriously concerned about particularly the gondola, where it's attached to its upper structure. And I have to raise that. And I've raised it now, so it's public domain.
Can I clarify, Ron, which committee you're talking about that you've been excluded from?
There's two apparently. One to look at option 1 and one to look at option 2. It was put before the executive quite some time ago. 2 options. Option 1 being to retain it as a visitor attraction, an non-operational bridge, and 2 to return it to an operational bridge crossing.
Right. Yeah.
And I've not, as I say, I contacted both the mayor and Mika quite a long time ago to say I would be interested, because I have some input to put into this, because I have concerns, and it hasn't happened. Why? I don't know. I tend to think that decisions are being made, and I want to be kept out of the way because I might not agree with them.
Well, it may be something that could be brought up through this committee. I don't know what the arrangements are there. Maybe you could give me some advice on this. But I mean, we can't ask for you to go on committee to executive from here.
That's right.
We could possibly make a recommendation. I don't know.
No, it's fair enough. It's just I feel I have to make it clear.
Yeah.
My concerns, and I have quite a number of times raised the fact that I'm concerned that the gondola gets halfway across and finishes up in the river, unless they look at the certain things which I flagged up with the then chief executive in 2011-12, Mr. Robinson, who was an engineer supposedly, and nothing's been done about it as far as I'm concerned. The fellow who was looking after transport said, "Oh well, we can't get underneath," which is total nonsense. So there you are. That's where we are.
Well, I think one of the things that's coming out of this meeting is we want Jeff Field or somebody from his department to be in front of the next committee. I think we've got to ask for that because we've not appeared today, and I think we were expecting that somebody would be here. Not only the
I think we've lost David.
Yeah, we've lost the chair. We'll just give it a few moments and see if we can get him back. I think his connection's gone down slightly. Chair, can you hear us all right?
The joys of modern technology.
Michelle, can I just ask who the vice chair is, please?
That's myself, I believe.
Lovely. Jeff, would you like to take over the chair role just as and see if we can get the chair back into the meeting? Would that be all right?
Indeed, indeed.
Thank you
I'll
very
give
much.
I'll give the
That's
chair
great.
a call.
That's lovely. Thank you.
I was just going to ask of the chair a question, and in response to the councillor who spoke with regards to the bridge and the concerns over its safety, and surely whatever option is decided for the bridge, whether it's option 1 or option 2, then surely the council's insurer Zurich would have to issue a certificate of safety to say that, you know, it met the standards for insurance purposes anyway, as to either what option was taken. But certainly, you know, Councillor Rundle does raise some, I think, concerns there that we should be aware of, and whether this committee could actually feed it into the other 2 committees that are up and running, you know, would be fair to do for this committee to do. I can see some hand waving, and there's Councillor Higgins. So, Therese, no, you don't, right? You're just laying bets off for the
No, I was just
racing.
waving to the I forgot your name, the GMB trade union, because I thought he was
Brian.
Oh,
waving to
Brian.
everyone. Brian.
Right, yeah, Brian's arrived now. He's online. So
Yeah, apologies for being late. I had some IT issues. In respect of the gondola, and it's probably to answer the questions of Ron, really, is that I would assume that the full structural survey that they've had done, and I suppose this is one of the questions that we need to ask of Jeff, would have took into account the gondola issue and the extra 15-ton that new gondola presented, because I know there's been some issues highlighted with regards to the track, the running track. Is that right, John?
I'm not aware of that, Brian.
Oh, right, okay. But the you know, if they've undertook a full structural survey, then surely that must have took into account the gondola and the new weight, and bearing in mind what Jeff said with regards to the insurers.
yeah, just Councillor Arundel.
Thank you. With regard to the upper trolley which carries the gondola, they're looking at that. If the bridge is to be returned to a working bridge, they're saying that might have to be renewed. When the contract was done in 2011-12, whatever, shortly after I went up with the kids on top there, and to my horror, I'd see that piece of structure wasn't even painted. When I quizzed why on earth, when they painted the whole of the bridge, why nothing was done with that carriageway which suspends the gondola beneath? So it wasn't in the contract. Now, you know, it's hard to believe what went on in them times. Dear me, it's ridiculous, you know. So it's just up there, rusty as hell. I mean, I can't verify. You know, I haven't been able to get close enough to be able to say whether it's safe or not. But they are looking at the possibility of having to renew that. So that's built into the estimates.
Well,
It's going to cost £500,000 to replace the rails.
yeah,
If they decide.
like yourself, Ron, you know, looking at the report, there's been some expertise being brought in from engineers, and we're always reliant on expertise to give us that advice and give us reports that we can follow. And obviously, the bridge is iconic to this area, and given that there's only 2 working bridges, or 1 currently working in the country, you know, I think we have to do everything we can to continue for this bridge to work. Teresa, do you want to come in there?
Yes, Chair. I don't know whether I've got this wrong, but the young man who's our health and safety officer for the council, are you on any of those committees, and are you getting any information about what's happening? Because to me, it seems as if you're not. And if you're not,
That's a very good question, Councillor Higgins. And no, I haven't been invited.
Well,
to
that's
any
a
of them
disgrace.
committees.
That is a disgrace, because I know from since you came in, You've done a great deal of work for the health and safety of our members. And I think that's a disgrace, and I hope the chair will write to whoever can get you on those committees so you can bring the advice and the facts back to this committee, because you're brilliant at that. And I think for Jeff Field not to have come to this meeting is another disgrace. And I'm
I
not
think
in a
that-
very good mood today, so I'm really sorry if I'm naggy.
I think the trade
Am I
unions.
back?
Okay, David, I'll just finish off what I'm saying and then I can hand back to you,
No
sir.
problem. Okay.
The trade unions would totally agree with everything that you've said, Teresa, that John has certainly made some fantastic advances as regards health and safety in this authority. And it is disappointing. I mean, I've been with the local authority 33 years now. And I hope that we aren't hiding anything in relation to the bridge, because everything's got to be brought open. And we've seen many times that, you know, things do come out into the open. And we've got to be very open and very frank. What went wrong? We've got to have a look at it. And, you know, I think the people already of Middlesbrough are saying that, you know, this iconic bridge has got to be restored to a working bridge, you know. And I hope through some way we can find that money. I don't know whether there's money to tap into, you know, but I hope we can do it. But certainly, David, a request was being made by Councillor Higgins for you as the chair, for John Armstrong, the head of health and safety, to be put on these committees, because he's telling this committee that he isn't getting anything back as regards the reports and any advances on that. And I think the whole committee finds that quite concerning. So I'll hand back now to you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeff. So what we're saying is that John is not getting an invite to this committee for the executive. Is that right?
So far, I haven't received anything, David.
Right. Well, in which case, then I think we make a formal request,
Okay.
and we put that down in writing from the.
Totally agree, Chair.
It's not acceptable. Also, it's not accepted that we don't have anybody coming here from the relevant department to answer the questions on the Transporter Bridge, because it's down there on the agenda. So can we minute those, please, for the end of the meeting? I'm very concerned, because it's not a question just about the Transporter Bridge. It's a question about reporting systems and whether they've been reported. Yes. Is it Eric?
Yes, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Chair. I'm just a question. Does the council, I'm fairly new to this industry, but my background is bridge building and steel erecting. And what I want to know is, does the council have a specific engineering inspection group to look at these kind of things, or do they just rely on insurance reports and reports of people who go and look at it?
My understanding is, but John may correct me on this, that we rely on an external body. Is that right, John?
I believe the bridge is split between Middlesbrough and Stockton Council. I believe Stockton Council do have a bridge engineer that we have access to, but in relation to Middlesbrough Council, I don't think we have a bridge engineer. We do carry out insurance inspections on the bridge, but as I say, this is very limited knowledge, as I'm not invited to the groups. Brian, I notice you've got your hand up.
Yes, Brian.
The reason that the bridge is in the state that it's in is because Middlesbrough Council didn't have a bridge engineer, and if you read the whistleblowers report, it's very evident in there that that's a major factor in what happened with the bridge, is that we didn't have a bridge engineer, and we had somebody else that wasn't qualified as a structural bridge engineer overseeing the bridge. And you know, from a GMB perspective, we highlighted the issues over, I suppose, austerity really, and how that affected the health and safety of the bridge, and the fact that decisions were made that have directly impacted on how the bridge has ended up in the state that it's in.
Before we go any further, you mentioned, though, I think John mentioned, that Stockton have a bridge engineer and that
Yes.
Stockton are jointly responsible with us. So why
Yeah.
don't we use the bridge engineer from Stockton?
We are now.
Right, okay, so in effect, that situation has been sorted. We've now got a qualified bridge engineer.
Yeah.
And we're also getting in, presumably, an external company to do the regular inspection that we will need. Is that right, John?
Well, I think the insurance company will come in and basically, I believe it's a 5-year report.
Yes, yeah.
So it's an insurance report. And then what we'd like to do within our audit is basically check that all the actions within that report are completed within a timely manner. And I mean, at the minute the bridge is closed, so you know, if and when the bridge reopens, then what we'd expect to see, you know, health and safety wise, is a robust auditing regime where we are checking that insurance reports are getting completed, checking that all the actions are getting completed, checking that there's a robust maintenance regime in place, and checking that the people carrying out that maintenance have got all the relevant qualifications needed to carry out their tasks.
We've got Ron that wants to come in. Ron?
Yes, not only is structural engineer not involved, I feel that the bridge in total was left to its own devices. Nobody from the council upper management structure took any interest in it. I think we just left a trust to that to the bridge manager at the time. For me, like, well, least said less best, you know. But I think that's what happened. It was trusted in the hands of one guy, and lots of things were wrong. Lots and lots of things were wrong, which have been found out later. But I think it was just left to its own devices. That's the top and bottom of it, and that's as far as I can see.
I think, I mean,
Yes, John?
with that councillor, obviously, you know, the bridge was in one directorate ownership for a number of years. Since then, it has moved into a different directorate, where, you know, the problems have basically been identified, and that, you know,
Yeah, Brian.
John,
you know,
and there's aims obviously to resolve them issues, subject to cost.
I'm just challenging the, you know, the notion that the bridge was moved to a different directorate, and that's when the issues were identified. The Transporter Bridge, and if you read the report, was partly run by 2 directorates. When Jeff's directorate took over the management of the bridge, i.e. the running of the bridge, it was highlighted, and it clearly states in the whistleblowing report that this is the GMB's problem, is that we highlighted, I think we started in November 2018, but certainly from January 2019, the issues of that bridge and the fact that it was in a dangerous state of repair and condition. And to say that, you know, improvements had started to be made is I think a bit woolly and trying to cover things over. You know, the only reason the bridge, we're talking about the bridge now, and we're getting it dealt with, is pure and simply because of that whistleblowing report, end of period, and the frustration and objections and obstacles put in the way to that whistleblowing report actually going in as something that I think that we need to look at, because, you know, if people have got concerns, then it should be easy to do that, rather than having meetings where people are trying to talk people out of doing, you know, whistleblowing.
There's 2 things are worth bearing in mind here. First of all, I think there's no question that responsibility did pass from one department to the other, and it's not the case that one department is responsible and the other department isn't. I think there's been responsibility on both parts. That is historical to a large extent. However, one thing we must bear in mind, it doesn't matter whether the bridge is working or not. The fact is the bridge goes over the Tees and things go under it. So the bridge has to be in serviceable position now, in serviceable condition. Otherwise, it is a danger to shipping. So whether the bridge is open or not, it still needs to be regularly checked by a structural engineer who has the expertise to do that. And I'm assuming, John, please correct me if I'm wrong, that that is what is happening.
As I say, David, Jeff Field would be best placed to answer them questions because it's Jeff. The bridge is Jeff's responsibility.
In which case, can we ask somebody from Jeff's department to turn up to the next meeting and answer those questions? Because we haven't got
Yes.
an answer to them. Okay.
Definitely. Yes.
I'd like to
Excuse me,
pass
Chair.
on from the
Excuse me, Chair.
Sorry,
Sorry.
who's that? Go on, Teresa. Yes.
Yeah. Can we find out why he hasn't appeared today, seeing as how it was in the minutes that we were going to discuss it? I mean, this is, John, I'm sorry for you because, you know, as I said earlier, you should be at the forefront of this. So, and it seems to me that this committee is getting short shift. They're not taking any notice of us. So it's a case of, oh, let them have the meeting. We can't discuss it properly because we haven't got the proper information. And that's nobody's fault on this committee. Only people who are not coming up and telling us what's happening.
What
Sorry.
I think we should do, Teresa, is we should minute this. The minute should go straight to Charlotte to say that we are disappointed that a person from Jeff Field's department did not attend this meeting in order to answer those questions. And then we're passing it on to Charlotte to say, right, you're the person responsible, get it sorted. Does that sound the best way forward?
For
Is
me,
anybody-
yes, if
Yeah?
everybody else is in agreement.
Everybody's in agreement. I think there's only certain things we can do as a health and safety committee.
Agreed.
What we can do is say, this isn't good enough. And we then pass it up the line to the person who has responsibility. Charlotte has legal responsibility. She is the person who is going to be prosecuted if things go wrong. And she knows that. So I think we need to make it clear in the minutes. And there may be other ways we can do it. Maybe an email could be sent to her, John. Is that possible? I can send her an email. Is that?
I think that would be possible. Yeah.
Right. Well, in which
Definitely.
case, then I will do that. I'll send an email to her just to tell her, and I'll copy you in first before I send it, so you can see what I've done.
Okay,
So I'll
thank you.
send an email to Charlotte expressing our deep concern over the fact that we haven't had somebody from the department to answer these important questions.
Chair, can I just ask now, in relation to where health and safety now sits and what it's trying to achieve in that it can now enforce issues around health and safety, that it does not, it's got that power now to serve notice on environmental services to actually get it done, because it could leave, as you said, there's a hazard to shipping should something fall off it. That health and safety does have that internal power now to serve on any department or any individual to get something done if there's a risk to life or limb in regard to health and safety. And I thought that was the idea, is that to get health and safety to sit where it was, so that it could enforce issues around health and safety.
Right. Well, again, John may correct me on this. I don't think the committee can do this. I think that John can ask for that to be done. Ultimately, I think I'm right in saying in the structure, responsibility lies right at the top with ultimately the mayor. And Charlotte, really, I think we could copy in the mayor. I think it would be useful to do that so that he knows exactly what's happening. They have ultimate responsibility. They are the people that then have to go to Jeff Field's department and say, get this done. But we can make it absolutely clear that's what they have to do. If they don't do that, it's their head on the block. I'm not saying we stop at that, but I'm saying we're putting the responsibility where it is. John, is that how you would read that?
Yeah, I think so, David. I mean, the one thing that I would add is I had put together a new communication and consultation framework procedure as part of this meeting. A bit more work needs to go into that, including, say, the terms of reference of this committee. But I will bring that to the next committee, which will, hopefully bring about changes to the attendance in this meeting. So, and it'll make clear who needs to attend, who doesn't need to attend, and also add a couple of other meetings into the framework so that any issues that are highlighted at, say, you know, say a worker level on the Transporter Bridge can then be escalated through directorate meetings and through to this meeting. At the minute, we've got basically this meeting, which isn't really attended by senior management, and that would be my concern at the minute. But I think if we can get a new communication and consultation procedure agreed by LMT, then everybody knows what they need to do, and I think that's the approach to take. You know, get what we want written down and agreed in a formal procedure.
Well, I'll refer to that formal procedure, but I will also send an email to Charlotte, copy to the mayor, explaining our concerns about the person not turning up, making clear that she has ultimate legal responsibility, and the mayor has ultimate legal responsibility, and it's up to them to come to this committee if there are issues that need to be addressed. If people are happy with that, then that will be done straight after, and we'll get that moved on.
Agreed, Chair.
Yes, go on, Teresa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't forget to say, sorry, David, I'm not telling you what to do, but
Yeah. Go on.
I am really.
Go on, Teresa.
Don't forget to say that John should, so he can report back if you don't mind.
John, sorry?
John should be on both of those committees.
Yes. These are on the committees for the executive, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to
I can't think of, yeah, I can't think of anybody on the exec who's more up to date on structure than Ron Arundel.
Well, what I'll do is I'll mention both of those things, but I'll put an email together, send it to John. We'll discuss it between the two of us, and then we'll make sure that covers all those points. Okay. Can I propose we move on from Transporter Bridge? I don't think there's any more we can do on that. There is the issue I'd just like to take in this, which is item 8, which links into it, terms of reference. And I think I'm right in saying we're going to check the terms of reference because we were intending to set up a subcommittee. I'm moving on shortly to 8 because I think it ties in with it. We're going to set up a subcommittee, tried to get that organised, weren't able to do that because we were told it wasn't within the remit of the committee, and that we need to clarify that we should be able to set up a subcommittee. And that also needs to be clarified. That can be put into the email, or it may be another way of doing it. I wonder if I could get, is that okay?
Okay, I mean that could be also added into the email. We might be able to have a brief discussion about that now. Again, you know, what I was thinking about doing there is basically expanding on the terms of reference for this committee. The terms of reference that we've got for this committee that I've inherited don't really go into enough detail about what the committee can and can't do. So what I'd propose to do as part of that communication consultation procedure is expand on that terms of reference so it can be agreed in this group. In relation to setting up a subcommittee, I believe there are issues which basically don't allow us to maybe set up that committee with one of the whistleblowers. I don't know if Paul Stevens would be able to explain that in a bit more detail than what I can. Paul?
Paul, can you come in on that?
What did you ask me, John?
I was just saying about you know, setting up a subcommittee to discuss the Transporter Bridge issues and the reasons why that committee basically couldn't be set up. I believe it was something to do with also including the whistleblower within that committee, which was part of the reason.
No, I discussed it with Charlotte and Sylvia Reynolds after the last meeting, and they're saying it's not within the current remit of the committee, as I think's already been said. So as you were saying, there's a procedure that we're looking at with LMT in the next few weeks, and we'll bring it back in the next committee. That'll cover that off, and obviously we'll take in any comments of this committee into account.
Right. Okay. Well,
in terms of the representation on any proposed subcommittee, obviously it's inappropriate for whistleblowers to set up and investigate their own complaint. So I think everyone will understand.
I think the concern about the committee here is that it's not just about looking at the Transporter Bridge. It's about looking at whether, in fact, the reporting systems are effective, because that's what came back from the Transporter Bridges, that they weren't. So it's a wider remit than just let's have a look at the Transporter Bridge. We've got to look at other things too. anyway, we'll take that up with in the email and go on from there. Are people
Okay.
happy with that?
Yes, Chair.
Right, if I move then on to 5, roof at Resolution House. And this, of course, you'll remember came up, and it's in the minutes as well. Problem with the roof. Do we have anybody that can give us an answer on where we are with that? John, do you have any information on that?
Again, Jeff Field and David Jameson were invited to the meeting, and they will be the best people to provide an update on that. So if we maybe put that in the minutes, put it in the action register for them to attend the next meeting and provide an update, that would be great.
That's fair enough. Well, I can also refer to that in the email as well. So that was items 4 and 5. Okay. We'll move on from that then. We really can't go any further on that, I don't think. Is there anybody want to say anything on that? If not, let's move on. Working from home procedure. Where are we on that, John?
Okay, so working from home procedure. I've invited Nicola Finnegan along to basically provide an update on the agile working procedure. Nicola, if you're okay to update, that would be great.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure. So the message that I got back from what the committee were looking at was around some do's and don'ts for from home working. So I've put a couple of slides together. So I'm happy to go through that, and then if there's any questions after that, are you happy with that, Chair?
I'm happy with that. Is everybody else happy? Yeah.
Yes, Chair.
You go ahead.
That's all right. Have you got my presentation, Michelle? Thank you. Thanks. If you can just skip to the next one straight away. Thank you. Just as a bit of a recap, so working from home, we've had a bit of a milestone recently, obviously, because we've just gone past our first year anniversary. So it has gone on since March last year. It happened very quickly, literally overnight, and everybody had to decamp. We've had loads of things put in place about organisation of equipment, you know, IT. I've done an amazing job of making sure that everybody can keep working and that we've got the right facilities to do that. So I would applaud them for that. But we also looked at getting chairs taken out to people and any other equipment, or if there were people that needed reasonable adjustments, we've looked at things like that. So the people have got different height desks and lots of things put in place. And there was also the introduction of the working from home allowance, which allowed people to go out and buy additional equipment that would make it easier for them to work from home, and that could be a range of things. I think I reported to the last Works Council there was about, I think it cost about £68,000 or something like so far that had been claimed by employees, which realistically, from the number of people that we've got potentially working Agile, that figure could have been up to about £200,000, but it's come nowhere near that. So a lot of people have managed and haven't needed to get anything additional. So that was really good. If you just go to the next slide, please, Michelle. So a quick run through some of the things, and we've reiterated a lot of these things through our working from home's newsletters, through managers' briefings, and lots of things like that. So there are, you know, some. They look straightforward on the face of it, but I think once you talk through it with people and they start taking some of those things on board, they realise the benefits of doing things like this. So, you know, being organised, having everything in one place so that you can be ready to start the day. When we say get ready for the day, and it sounds really simple, but it's about getting up, getting dressed, and being ready as if you were going to start work, as if you were going to the office. It's no different. You should still prepare to come to work the same as you do when you're at home. We've got there, have a dedicated space. Now, this has been difficult for some people, you know, depending on your living arrangements. Sorry, if you go back, Michelle. If some people haven't got a dedicated space, they might not have an office space, or they might not, but at least they've got somewhere where they can keep everything together. And it's almost about that traveling to work. You haven't got a commute, but you need to go to the place where you're going to do your work. And And having the right equipment, I've touched on that with IT. So we've got to make sure that we've got access to laptops, that people can access the systems they need to, that they've got headphones, you know, if they can have a chair from work and they've got room for it, they've done that, or they can buy one. So we rely on people a lot to look at what they need. And that's what we've said to them, you know, there's certain things that obviously they need to know to look at in terms of comfort and, you know, not sitting in the same place and things like that. But the right equipment that we have, we've shared with people and we've allowed them to go and buy additional. Taking regular breaks, I think it's really important. It's a simple thing, but if you were at work, you wouldn't sit at your computer for as long as people do when they're at home. So, you know, you'd get up and go to the copier, or you'd get up and make a cup of tea, or you'd get, and you would move around a lot more at work than you would at home. So it's really important to take even short breaks away from the screen so that you're not sat there constantly looking at screen. And those are little regular breaks. We've encouraged people continuously to keep talking to their manager. It's easy. It's more of an effort, people think, if you've got to pick up the phone or you've got to do something where normally you would have walked past them in the corridor, or you would have walked past them, you know, at the end of your desk. We've really encouraged people to make sure that they still do that, so they're still feeling part of the team. Turn your camera on. This is one that we've pushed out recently, because there's sometimes, especially with WebEx, the only time you see people is on a screen, and there were some cases where staff weren't putting their cameras on, and they would say things like, oh, you know, I don't feel like I'm in the right space to do that today, and things like that. And it's really difficult, because you say, but if you were at work, you couldn't not be in a meeting. Once you're in a meeting, you have to be present in that meeting. And it's really important. I think you mentioned it at the beginning, Chair, about seeing people's faces and seeing the reactions to, you know, when you're talking to somebody. It's a big part of our communication, how we, you know, read each other. So it's really important. And, you know, we've given tips out about, you know, if some people were worried that they didn't want people to see into their homes and things like that. So we've said, you know, there's backgrounds that you can use and things like that. You know, there's lots of things you can do. But I think it's important. That's the only time some people are seeing people. So you've got to see their face and see those reactions. Stick to a routine. Like I said, you get up, you start work, you make sure you take a lunch break, you make sure you finish. So it has to be the same as going to work. And I think right at the beginning, it was really difficult for people, because you were thrown into a different environment, and it's really important for your mental well-being, really, to keep that routine going, and not slide into bad habits potentially. Be kind to yourself. You know, everybody's having bad days. And I think we all just have to accept that, you know, it's like no other day. Some days you're going to have bad days. But that's okay, you know, and the next day you'll have a good day and you'll do better. So I just think people just need to stop putting pressure on themselves. I think people are putting a little bit of pressure on themselves and the expectations. So they just need to be kind to themselves. I've put avoid distractions, and a lot of this is not that I don't love seeing everybody's new puppies, but the amount of people that have gone out and bought dogs over this period has been, you know, it's been massive. But it's really important that when you are working, you try and be away from that distraction. I know it's been difficult when the schools have been off and things, you know, and we've worked really hard with people who've had children at home and things to be flexible around that. But I think we're moving to a bit more stable period now, so we can say things like that. And we've put move around. I think, I don't know whether it came to this, I think it did come to this committee, but I definitely went to Works Council as well. The programme of things that we put in place. So we worked with Public Health to do videos around Stretch Well, which were like 5-minute exercise things that you can just take a quick break away from your computer, get a little bit of movement. It's not running around the house getting dead out of breath, but it was a little bit of something just to get your heart rate up and to make sure that you're not sat stiff in the same place all the time. Just skip to the next one, Michelle, please. And some of these sort of talk to some of those stress things that I was just mentioning there. So a big thing is about, don't feel you have to be available 24 hours a day. There's a big thing around presenteeism now. And I've seen it sometimes if I've worked later on a night, and I can tell from Jabba that there's still people online, or there's people who haven't turned their laptop off. And there's a temptation, if you don't do that, you keep going back and you keep having another look, and you don't have that separation from work. I've put a line on the bottom of my emails now that talks about, you know, I work a different pattern because that suits me, and I don't expect people to respond out of hours. So it's almost saying it's okay, you know, whilst people might send emails, don't feel that you have to be available, because you should be available for your normal working time. I've put there, be bound by the 9 to 5, and this will depend on people's roles, because in some cases they have to be available at certain times because we deliver a service, a frontline service to the public. So things like, I would say, revs and bends and stuff, whilst they're working from home, but they're still expected, the service is available for a set time. So some people will be bound by that, but others won't, and have got more flexibility to work with the managers to say, actually, do you know, I need a couple of hours in the middle of the day to do X, Y, and Z, and they'll shape their day around that. And if it works for everybody, that's great. But they don't work from anywhere, and that's, you know, I've seen myself, people sat on beds, on sofas, you know, on dining room tables. I think it's important to find a comfortable place to work. I know that's easy if you've got space to do that, but be realistic about, you know, what you can achieve from your working environment and what it's going to do to you physically if you're not working in the correct posture or everything else. Overdo the snacks. This is a great one. Everybody needs a lock on the fridge because there's a temptation to just dip in. No, it's some of these things I think have changed as people have got used to it, but I know initially, even within my own service, that was one of the things that people kept saying. That just because we're on lockdown, there's nowhere to go, there's nothing to do. Everybody's obsessed with food, and it just becomes one of those pick. So, turn on the TV. I think this is it sort of links into that distraction. You know, don't turn on the TV or other things that are just in the background that are going to pull you away from what you're doing. It's hard to concentrate. Just don't do it. Set unreasonable targets. You know, you're working from home, but that doesn't mean you work in isolation. You know, you're still taking calls, you're still attending meetings, you're still doing other things. So don't think that you should be able to produce X amount more just because you're at home. Be reasonable about, you know, what you're doing and what you can achieve. Don't forget to get some fresh air. If that's you doing your hours exercise or whatever it is, which is a bit more now, but to just go for a walk around the block. If you're in town, you would have probably walked out and got a sarnie or something like that. Just part of that routine, make sure you get some fresh air, even if it's going into the garden, if you've got one, something like that, just to clear your mind, reset for the afternoon. Don't rely on email and text. Like I said, you know, a big part of our communication is talking to people. So I do it more and more now. Even if I just call somebody on the Jabber system, I'll put the video on, so at least I can see them while I'm talking to them. So it would be like if I was talking to them in the office. And it's really important people pick up the phone and have that verbal interaction as well. You know, emails at the best of times can be misinterpreted depending on what mood somebody's in and the way somebody's written it. So it's really important, I think, to get that whole range of communication. Don't let your work and home life merge into one. Easier said than done if you're limited on space. But I think some of the suggestions we've made in the past, even, you know, when it gets to the end of the week, even if it's put everything in a cupboard, even if it's throw a blanket over it or do something so that it physically separates you from, so that you cut off and you're actually at home now and not at work. Don't isolate yourself. It's easy. Like I said, you have to make an effort sometimes to be in touch with other people. But you know, lots of services have done things like catch up and a cup of tea. They've done, you know, at lunchtimes and other stuff, little quizzes and things like that. We encourage people to make sure that they join in with those things and don't isolate themselves. And that last one, don't feel guilty for making a cup of tea. If I had £1 for everybody who has told me that they've rushed down the stairs back from the loo, or they've rushed back in from the kitchen because they made a cup of tea, you wouldn't do that in the office. You know, you're still allowed to get up and move away from your desk to go and do things. So people shouldn't feel guilty that they weren't there immediately to answer the phone. You know, they'll call back when they get back. So that's just a bit of that, going back to be kind to yourself and be realistic about what you can do in a day. If you just go to the next one, Michelle, please. There's lots and lots of plans going on around the future, and I know Paul's been involved in this, and there's going to be a working group and how we do that. But the reality is we probably move into a more hybrid model. So there will be an element of working from home, but there'll be some contact in the office. We are working on modules about how we manage remotely to help managers and staff know what those expectations are around that. How we stay in touch. There's minimum communication standards that are expected for directors and heads of service to make sure that their services still feel in touch with the, with the leaders within that service. The work-life balance thing is becoming a really big, and this ties into the next two. It's becoming an expectation from new recruits. It's something that people are looking for. Can I have an element of working from home if I come to work for you? So I think the future model is definitely something that the talent pool is looking for. Like I say, it helps you attract from a wider area, because if we say to somebody, actually, you only need to come into the office once a week or twice a week, well, actually, I don't mind if I live a bit further away if I'm only going to do that. So it widens the pool of people that we can attract. And it's about hanging on to the people, because it means a lot to people, the flexibility and the working from home that we've got. It's important to people, and I think people have realised that certain things, I think, what was it in my service, it said something about, that stress of that morning rush of everybody getting out the house to go to work and taking the kids to school and is gone, and both her and the partner can have taken turns at taking the kids to school, but all of that stress about getting everybody dinners done, everybody in the car, that's all gone. And those things are really, people are starting to recognise the benefits of those things. So that's it, really. That was just a quick whistle stop round it. But is there any other questions?
Thanks very much for that, Nicola. Yes, any questions that anybody wants to ask? And if we
Just one,
Ron-
Chair. In relation to the home has become the workplace for many. What happens in relation to any accidents during your actual working day? Is that reportable as you would report an accident at work, or has nobody ever give any consideration to that?
It's never come up, if I'm honest. It's a bit strange, isn't it? So if you go in the kitchen, if you go in your own kitchen and make a cup of tea, then you're in your own house and you make a cup of tea. That's not a work issue. We would expect, in terms of equipment and everything, to be set up. Everybody knows the basic principles about trailing cables and all the other things. And we did put some reminders about that, about how you set up that bit of a home environment. And when we're into it's a bit of a delicate balance, isn't it? We were forced overnight into home working. So all of the really structured things that you want to have in place, we didn't have the opportunity to do because everybody just had to go. I think as part of that hybrid working model, there will be all of those necessary checklists and things in place to make sure that people are following, all of those things and making sure they're keeping themselves safe. And as part of that, there's also about insurance and things, so you tell your insurer that you're spending time working from home. So I don't know if you've got anything to input, John, but I've not really had any issues from anybody about accident at home.
Any comments on that, John?
No, I haven't either. I mean, I think it was a good presentation. You've picked up loads of relevant points there. I guess it kind of depends on the employment, terms of conditions, doesn't it? Which may or may not have changed. But at the end of the day, we've got to accept that we're in a pandemic, and this isn't normal times. It's almost like a reaction to the pandemic, the situation that we find ourselves in. The only other thing that I was going to add on, which wasn't in relation to accidents, was about display screen equipment assessments. And I know that we'd had discussions earlier on when the pandemic first started, should we be doing display screen equipment assessments in the home? I think with that presentation there, we've basically picked up on everything, and we just really need a decision on whether to formalise a process for carrying out DSE assessments for those that are working at home at the minute. I have produced a DSE assessment procedure. There is a requirement to do DSE assessments for people who are classed as home workers. But I guess we could maybe, if it's not discussed in this meeting, but certainly the next meeting, decide whether we think that would be beneficial, or, we need to know how long we're going to be in this situation for, which is a bit of a how long is a piece of string at the minute.
Okay.
It is,
Um,
but
I-
sorry,
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 go
Chair.
very quickly because Denise wants to come in next. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, John, that it'd be really worth feeding that into this. Like I say, there's going to be a new working group and looking at how we
Yeah.
formalise and all of that. So it'd be really useful to feed that in, and then we can pick that up moving forward. Thanks,
Thanks
Chair.
very
Yeah.
much, Nicola.
Okay,
Denise
thanks.
and then Ron. Denise.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. The presentation was great, Nicola. I can't think of anything that you've missed. My question is, how often are the staff reminded of it? Because it is easy to, to slip back into a way of working that doesn't meet all of those standards. So how often is that message kind of confirmed to people? And I know we've had to react, and we didn't expect to still be here 12 months down the line. But it's just about making sure that everybody does work well at home. Thanks.
Nicola.
Yeah, so we like I say, we do it through newsletters, through, I suppose the good thing is that people working at home are all on the email system, so we can get regular stuff out. So we include things on the weekly bulletin. And we also include things that we have a separate newsletter that goes out to managers to remind them of what their responsibilities are. And we want them to keep it on the agenda with people. It's a fine line. You don't want to keep telling people the same thing over and over again, but you're right. It's good to remind people. And we're due to do a new update now as well. So I can include some of these things again and reiterate some of those messages. And I think it's a timely point, isn't it? Even if we say, actually, we're a year in, still doesn't matter, still don't drift, make sure that you stick to all of those things. So we can absolutely do another one in our next, even if we make it a bit of a health and wellbeing special and put all of those things in, I think we can do that.
Okay, thanks. Ron, you had a question?
Yeah, it's about the fact that human beings are social creatures. We can't move too far down the internet to the point where people become completely distanced from each other. It's bad for them. It's bad for their health, bad for their mental health. There's a downside of that, and the fact that probably the social interaction's the reason why we've still got dragged on with this COVID. But I found, it was impossible for me in the job I did to work from home. But a big part of my working life was the social interaction, as I'm sure Eric will bear out when you work on sites and such as that in the workshops. The banter and the patter and all this, that, and the other, it sometimes made, a rather unpleasant job bearable, because you had this interaction with people. So let's not lose sight of the fact that people do need to meet each other. It's good for them, and I hope that's borne in mind. But I hope we don't push too far down the route of everybody doing everything through screens. Thank you.
Brian? Did you want to come back on that first, Nicola, or was that straightforward?
Just to quickly mention, I think there is a recognition of that, and that's why we talk about this hybrid model, so that we still get at least some interaction. Because you're right, it's making sure there's still that team and feeling part of something, and a lot of that is done in a physical space, isn't it? So there would definitely be, there isn't a move to whole scale. Everybody carries on working from home 100% of the time. I'm not sure that anybody would really want that. I think we need a balance, don't we?
I'll bring in Brian. We'll have to make this the last question because I think we need to move on. Brian?
No, and I think it's just to emphasize what Ron's been saying, really, and it's probably not much of a health and safety issue here, but it's going to probably be more in the Works Council. But we hear on the news an awful lot about mental health problems that are all being stored up, and we've touched on that interaction. And I know the council's looking at moving into smaller premises, and we're probably going to enter into some consultation with regards to working from home. But we still need to, remember, my person. Yes, I could buy a chair, but actually my internet connection was rubbish, which then caused me all sorts of stress and anxiety. And stress and anxiety and that human interaction is something that's vital for people's mental health, and we don't need to be rushing down trying to save money on buildings by trying to get everybody working from home. If working from home suits people, that's great, but there shouldn't be that corporate pressure there to make sure that people work from home just so we can all fit in a building.
Go on, Nicola.
Sorry, just to come back quickly, totally get that, Brian. We did a bit of a survey previously and we asked how people were feeling and what they thought the future would look like. And I think we got something like between 75 and 80% of people, it might have been a bit more actually, who would be happy to do a bit of a split. There are some people at either ends of that, some people who want to work at home all the time, some people who, you know, absolutely hate it and want to be, and we'll have to take all of that into account, you know. Throughout this period, we've always said to people, if anybody's really struggling, whether it's with equipment or whether it's with their mental health, then we've accommodated people to come in, and I think it's a valid point, and we absolutely will look at all of those things moving forward.
Thanks very much, Nicola. I think I'll have to bring it to a close on there. I think obviously this thing will run and run because I think we are moving to hybrid working, and so I'm sure that we'll have to revisit this topic in the future. John, I've got down here health and safety report, Q3. If you could take that through us.
Yep, okay. So this is for Q3. I'll run through the employee incidents for Q3 and see what we have got. So over 7-day RIDDOR incidents have increased by 17% in Q3, and RIDDOR specified incidents have increased by 77% year to date. Could be due to an increase observed in Q2 for both sets of figures. Lost time incidents have also increased by 60% year to date, which is due to the increase in Q3. There's also been a decrease in the number of reported incidents that are minor, and you could potentially look at that and say, you know, with the number of, say, over 7 and specified and lost time incidents and the reduction of minor accidents and near misses, that there's a bit of underreporting going on there. But again, you know, we've got to accept that we're in the middle of a pandemic, and yeah, there is a bit of a discrepancy from previous years' data in relation to incidents being reported. There's also been an increase in another kind of accident in the category of incidents. So slips, trips and falls remain the number one type of incident that we're having. Another kind of accident is second, and then we've got manual handling. I'd like to see that another kind of accident category reduced, and with the purchase of a new system called My Compliance, we should be able to do that going forward. Once we've implemented that system, we'll have a bit more of a grip on that. So let's just have another look. So okay, so just moving on to RIDDOR reportable and lost time incidents. There was one single RIDDOR reportable incident in Q3, and that was relating to Cumberland Resource Centre. It was a specified injury where a cleaning operative placed a bucket outside of the laundry room. When they came back out the laundry room, they tripped over their own bucket and fell, landing on the wrist. They went to A&E, where they were diagnosed with a fractured wrist. It was reported to the HSE under RIDDOR, and management had a discussion with the injured party relating to paying due care and attention in order to prevent similar incidents in the future. There were 3 lost time incidents relating to employees in Q3. The first one being at Corpus Christi School, where another cleaning operative went in the boys' toilets to clean and basically tripped on some soap on the floor, which had come out of the dispenser, and basically they fell over and banged the hip. Again, the management had a discussion with the EIP around paying due care and attention in order to avoid that type of incident occurring in the future. The next one was in fleet services, which resulted in a lost time. A fitter was repairing a rotary deck and manually lifted the deck to get an axle stand placed underneath it. The procedure would normally involve the issue of an engine hoist to lift the deck from the front, where a roller and bracket is normally fitted. The deck was in for repair and the roller bracket was missing, so the normal procedure could not be followed. On lifting the deck manually, the fitter strained their back. Don't think that's any surprise. The action risk assessment was updated and communicated. and basically the bracket is to be repaired so that the lift and hoist can be used in future. This kit must not be lifted manually, and that's basically what the risk assessment now says. The next lost time was at Priory Wood School, where a specialist teaching assistant was supporting a pupil in the drama hall when they got the foot caught in some ladders that were hidden behind a full-length curtain, causing them to fall, which resulted in a fracture to their left hand, ring finger, and a bruised left leg. The action was basically to remove the ladders and find a suitable storage area for them in order to prevent that type of accident happening. Just have a look what else we have got. Violent incidents. Everyone's got the reports, so they can see the tables there. Again, we can't compare because there's been, changes in the structure of the council. So we're just basically putting the figures down for each quarter and the year end. That's that on the incident reports. So I'll go into the health and safety plan then. So health and safety audit. So in quarter 3, the health and safety team completed 15 premises health and safety audits. In relation to them audits, they have changed slightly. So we are focused a bit more on COVID-19 requirements, making sure that the COVID-19 risk assessments are in place for them premises, as well as looking at, statutory maintenance and other health and safety issues. I've informed the committee that in previous meetings we've developed premises health and safety plans, and once we get the new system all sorted, which should be within the next couple of months, the audits for all premises will be a lot more comprehensive. Fire risk assessments, you can see the table there. So we are continuing to do fire risk assessments, and you can see up to quarter 3 all of the fire risk assessments that we've done and the ones that have been planned in for quarter 4. Most of them have been completed now. There's a couple that haven't due to building works and refurbishment works. And in relation to the health and safety plan 2020-2021, all directors have now had directors health and safety training, so that's all sorted. The permit to work procedure that I brought to a previous committee has now been uploaded on the intranet. We still haven't completed or delivered the training on that, but hopefully I'll get that done in this quarter and provide an update back on that at the next meeting. COVID-19, we're still supporting management during the pandemic, helping them update COVID-19 risk assessment templates as and when the guidance changes. We've also put together COVID secure checklists for managers to check that their risk assessment controls are being adhered to, and we also audit that requirement as well within our health and safety audits. In relation to procedures for the wider management system, again, this should have been sent out within the notes. I've put together a legal and other requirements procedure, and what this is aimed to do is basically before any management systems are set up, we look at the legislation relating to the activities within each directorate. So what I plan on doing going forward is assigning a health and safety advisor to relevant directorates, and them health and safety advisors will set up legal registers for each directorate so they fully understand the legislative requirements associated with their activities and can implement procedures, risk assessments and safe systems of work in order to keep the staff safe. We've also put together an objectives and targets procedure, which I'll go through the plan on that once I've done the report. This basically provides advice and guidance to the CEO on establishing annual health and safety objectives and targets, and provides guidance to directors on how to implement and monitor annual health and safety objectives and targets throughout the year, which also links in with the communication and consultation procedure, which I mentioned earlier. If approved by LMT, it'll be put onto the intranet. But basically, the first year of objectives and targets are very basic health and safety requirements. Again, I'll talk through that in a bit. The annual health and safety targets plan basically picks up on implementation of the health and safety policy, legal registers for each directorate, making sure that each directorate and service areas within it have suitable and sufficient risk assessments in place, making sure that directorates have an up-to-date training matrix covering all health and safety training courses that are required to have in place. Premises health and safety plans, making sure that all premises have up-to-date, robust health and safety plans. Service area plans, we've developed a service area plan document, which, you know, it might be a bit much for every service area, but certainly for the high risk service areas, would recommend that them are completed, and then we can, you know, after 12 months of implementation, we'll then plan to come in and audit them plans. Incident reporting and investigations. Again, that's another objective and target to make sure all managers, directors, and incident investigators attend relevant training to enable them to carry out root cause incident investigations, establish what the root cause is, and put actions in place to prevent, you know, incidents recurring. And again, with the purchase of the new system, My Compliance, we'll be able to keep a closer track on that. And then health and safety meetings as well. So there's an objective in there to set up more robust health and safety meetings within each directorate. And again, the communication consultation procedure links into that, which I hope to bring to the next meeting. And again, you know, if agreed, that leads us on to, say, the management review procedure, which again links in with the communication consultation procedure. And the aim of the management review procedure or meeting is for the CEO or Charlotte Benjamin to chair. And what we'd be looking at within that meeting is the progress of them annual health and safety objectives and targets, any incidents within each directorate, and would expect LMT to be sat around that table as we provide updates on health and safety performance within each directorate and the wider authority. So that's the management review procedure. Display screen equipment procedure has been reviewed and rewritten. And again, I presume that's been agreed by LMT, so that will be uploaded on the system. A work at height procedure has also been produced to support directors in the development of directorate health and safety management systems. Risk assessment templates for work on roof spaces and the use of step ladders and ladders have been incorporated in the procedure, along with the requirement to maintain up-to-date ladder registers. Again, if that's approved, which I assume it has been, that will be uploaded on the intranet, and the requirements of that procedure and the DSE procedure and other relevant procedures will be incorporated into the service area plans, which will then be audited. Which brings me on to the service area plan. We think the premises health and safety plans that we implemented a couple of years ago have had a positive effect within each directorate and service area, informing them what they need to do in order to comply with legislative requirements associated with premises. We've now developed a similar plan for each service area so that they can basically implement robust operational health and safety, safe systems of work and risk assessments. It's fairly straightforward, similar format to the premises plan. And again, you know, we'll be focusing on, you know, sending that out to directors so that they can implement it within 12 months of implementation, going out and auditing, you know, service areas, but focusing mainly on the high risk service areas. And that is basically the report. Has anybody got any questions on it?
Any questions, please say. Yes, Ron?
Thank you, Chair. Non-occupation of buildings. I'm particularly concerned about the town hall. Now there's virtually nobody in the building at all. And I'm worried that we may get a fire in there and it's not, the alarm's not raised. in such a time that an extensive damage could be done. Is there a possibility that could happen because of the non-occupational building?
Most of Middlesbrough Council buildings are fitted with automatic fire detection. So what would happen there? Like, say for example, there was a fire out of hours. You know, certainly for our you know, historical buildings and stuff like that, if that automatic fire detection system's triggered, it'll go to a remote monitoring station. That remote monitoring station will basically make contact with the fire brigade. The fire brigade will then attend. So any damage should, you know, basically be minimal. I would imagine, as long as fire doors are kept shut, you know, and stuff like that. We have got systems in place that would detect fires. If that answers that question.
Can I come back on that, Chair?
Yep, John.
Yep.
Have we got systems in place that would automatically, you know, contact the fire brigade in the case of a fire in an area? As I say now, you walk around the town hall, it's like the Mary Celeste. There's nobody in there, you know. And normally, when the people were in there, obviously a fire would be, the alarm would be raised, and a fire brigade would be. So it may be a bit of an odd question, but it's just something that sprang to mind. You know, I thought a fire could get quite a serious hold in here before anybody, unless we have an alarm system in place that automatically alerts the fire brigade.
Yeah, that's in place, Councillor Avondale. So you know what you'd have is you know, you'll have a fire alarm panel, and then basically linked into that fire alarm panel, you'll have either smoke detector heads or heat detector heads, which will basically, you know, say for example there was a fire, any smoke coming from that fire would hit a detector that would send an alarm to the fire alarm panel. From that fire alarm panel, that would basically notify a remote monitoring station. Somebody would pick up that call, then immediately know that something's been activated in a Middlesbrough Council building, and either they would attend, security would attend, but either way the fire brigade would be notified of that.
Is that okay, Ron? Yep. Okay, Eric. Got a question from you.
Yes, it's just the point. Thank you, Chair. Just the point that Ron was raising about the town hall unoccupied building. Doesn't the town hall have a sprinkler system installed, as most buildings should have these days?
Some of our buildings do have sprinkler systems in place, but not all buildings would have sprinkler systems in place. I'm not sure. I'd have to check the fire risk assessment to have a look to see which areas of the town hall are fitted with sprinklers, if indeed they are. I'd have to check and get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you.
If you could do that, John, that would be useful. Any other questions on John's report? I have a question myself, John. A couple of questions.
Yep.
Management review procedure that you refer to on page 19.
Yep.
Do we get a report back on the result of that annual health and safety management review meeting? Is there a provision to report back to the committee on the findings of that meeting?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't brought the communication consultation procedure with me, and I'll bring that at the next meeting. Management review meeting basically links in with that, and what we'd be looking to do is, you know, we're not putting in 45,001 management system, but we will try and put in something similar to give the health and safety management system within each directorate and the council a bit more of a framework rather than just plan, do, check, act. You know, as part of that, what we'd probably want to set up is directorate meetings where, you know, each advisor would go along and do a report on set criteria that meet the requirements of that type of management system. So basically each quarter, each directorate, our aim would be to create a report on their performance based on objectives and targets, incident reports, incident investigations, outstanding actions from them incident investigations, any legal updates that may have changed within each quarter. And I guess, at the end of the year, what we're trying to do is get the directorates to a stage where they can go into that management review and say, yeah, I know exactly where I am in relation to health and safety compliance within the organisation, and these are the areas that are presenting a risk. And once we've got that set up, we can focus on the high risk situations. But yeah, I mean, a report would be produced as part of that management review meeting, and the aim would be to share that.
I think,
it should
yeah,
be
because I think what I'm
transparent.
looking for there is some kind of gap analysis, so that
Yeah.
we get a report back to this meeting that says there was a management review meeting for this
Yeah.
particular department. These were the things were okay. This is where there is a problem, so that
Yeah,
we have
that's
a
right.
handle on it. Otherwise, of course, you can have these meetings and they bring up the same problem every single
Yeah.
time, and they
Yeah.
never get sorted. So we do need to make sure that's the end of the process, that we actually see the end result of that.
Yeah, that's right.
The other question is similarly
The-
related on
The,
page
the other
17.
the,
Yeah,
the
sorry,
other
go on,
thing,
go on.
Dave, sorry, I was going to say about that. Obviously, the
Yeah.
management review meeting, I've developed a PowerPoint presentation for that meeting really that picks up the requirements of the management system. So the proposed directorate meetings would use the same format, I suppose. And if this committee agrees, I can use the same format in this meeting as well, and then it's relatively straightforward to do.
Right. Well, if we can have a go on that and see how useful it is to us. But I think at some stage we need that slotting into our schedule of events, so that we'll have a report back.
Yeah. Okay, I think David's frozen there. Brian, did you have a question?
Yeah, you've previously talked about the loan working policy, and you'd done one. I was wanting an update on that, and I think it maybe needs to be looked at more widely, particularly with regards to working from home and the visits that people are making from home. Obviously, I'm focusing on sort of like adult social care, children's social care, whereby people are going out. Whereas normally, if I'm leaving here, Jude's, I'm out, Jude, and that notification and the mechanisms around that, so that if people are out in the community, are doing something, then somebody knows where they are and what time they should be back. So the log in, log out systems should be included in that loan working policy risk assessment, wherever it is.
Okay, yeah, I can answer that. So loan working procedure, obviously that's been agreed. That has now been uploaded onto the intranet. It's up to directorates to then basically cascade that down within their directorate and implement the requirements of that procedure. Now, to assist them with that, within the annual objectives and targets procedure, there's a requirement to implement risk assessments and service area health and safety plans. Within the service area health and safety plans, there's a section under loan working, which basically, asks the question, have you done a sufficient risk assessment to cover all your loan working activities within your service area? Have loan working devices been provided for high risk loan working activities, etc.? Have escalation procedures been implemented associated with loan working activities? So all of that is within the service area plans, and it's in the objectives and targets, and hopefully by the end of, say, this year, we'll be in a position to hold a management review meeting and establish what level of compliance we've got within each directorate. The aim would be, with the communication consultation procedure, is to allocate, say, a health and safety advisor to relevant directorates and support them directors in actually implementing these procedures, which, we know there's a couple of issues there, but we're trying to put the systems in place to basically highlight where there are them issues so that we can focus on getting them resolved. Was that okay?
Yep, thank you. Yeah.
Given that David's having difficulty again with his internet connection, I'll take over the chair till he comes back.
Okay.
So, any further questions on what John's covered in that part of the report? If not, John, is you continuing with the next part of it, legal and other requirements procedure, or are we then on to terms of reference of Corporate Health and Safety Committee?
Terms of, I think that all of that's been covered, Jeff. So I think
Right.
we're up to
Yeah, there's a massive paperwork there, isn't there? And
yeah,
within that water paper, there's the screen display screen stuff and everything else. So if you feel as though that's been done, unless there's any questions on that, then we could move on. That would be then agenda item 9, the alcohol and drugs procedure. Is that all right with everybody?
Yeah. Okay. So
I don't know who's going to project. Are you presenting that, John?
I can.
Right.
give an update on that.
Okay,
So
John. Thank you.
Terms of sorry,
in terms of the terms of reference, because I think one of the things from the Transporter Bridge is that it. I mean, we can use that as an example, but there may be, unfortunately, at times where there is an issue that comes to the Health and Safety Committee that a subcommittee maybe needs to be go away and find out what's gone wrong and how. So if we can't do that, and I totally understand the side of the whistleblowers shouldn't be in there, I get that. But in terms of this committee being able to go away and actually look at what's gone wrong, how it went wrong, and how we can maybe make sure that that won't happen again. Is there any systematic issues? Is it is it a cultural issue or wherever? But I think that that's something that this committee needs to consider, and I have no idea whether that is something we can do or it's a constitutional issue. Full council, I don't know.
I think we covered that a bit earlier on in the meeting, Brian, in relation to the subcommittees, and it's something that John has give an answer to say that that's what we intend to do, providing there is a remit to do that, and John's going to go away and find out whether that's the case.
Okay, sorry.
I'd be disappointed in that. If a whistleblower couldn't be a part of that, I find it quite discriminatory, really. I mean, all you're doing is bringing something to the fore that should be there, and you'd be a part of a committee anyway. So I just find that totally discriminating against a whistleblowing individual or group, that there couldn't be representative on a working party or something.
It's we're all about clarity.
Absolutely, it's not vilifying
and honesty, and by excluding that, you would argue that you're excluding the committee from being able to find out what's actually happened.
It's about testing the integrity of the organisation and any vulnerabilities it's got. What we're stopping or trying to stop is corporate manslaughter or any worst case scenarios like that, or any cost to the authority. Money at the moment, we need it, so we don't want to be spending it, over accidents that could be avoided and everything. I'll just bring Teresa in on that. Teresa, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yes, I do think it's discriminatory, but I also have a fear that it could stop other people bringing some serious matters to the forefront in the whistleblowing procedure. They might think, oh, I'm not doing that because, look what happened last time. I just think it's stupid. There's some of the things that are being passed through. It's stupid. The people.
Well, I think what we will do is continue to look at that, and as I say, for Brian's organisation to be a part of that, I'd have no issue whatsoever. But that's not for me or this committee to say, And as I say, John will probably report back at the next Health and Safety Committee on any progress made on that.
If they tell him, he will.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
With this, my aim would be to, look at what other councils are doing in relation to their terms of reference for this meeting, and I will put something together, fairly similar to that. I've looked at the terms of reference that we've got in place at the minute. It's 2 lines. It's too woolly, so I will put something together. Add that to the procedure so that everybody's very clear of what we can and can't do within this meeting, and bring it to the meeting. If people want amendments to it or to discuss it, we can do that, and then I can update it once everybody's agreed. that's how it's going to be.
Yeah, that's fine. Cheers, John. Is any further questions there? If not, then I think we're safe to move on to the alcohol and drugs procedure. So it'll be back to you, please, John.
Yep, alcohol and drugs procedure. Why was this on the agenda? It's been written. I think it's just really to provide an update. We've produced an alcohol and drugs procedure, and it's sat with LMT at the minute. We're going to go back. So Nicola and I and Paul are going to do a bit of work on it. We're going to go back to LMT with a couple of recommendations. It's a bit of a can of worms, to be honest with you, because we have to decide, the best way to basically implement the procedure and a fair way of implementing that procedure. But it was really just to inform the group that we know that procedure is being done, and we are going to do a bit of work on it. And in a future committee meeting, once agreed by LMT, we will come back to the meeting and we will present our findings and discuss the way forward.
Right. Denise, sorry there.
Thanks,
Over to you.
Chair. Yeah, just a quick point because you haven't seen the procedure. I was keen that this had some reach into both the council, the members, although I think what we'll be able to do in terms of the members will be much more limited than we can with the staff, and to look at whether or not it should be applicable to any visitors to our building, or whether that falls somewhere else. Just to make sure it matches up, really, because I'm thinking if somebody comes into one of our public buildings and they're clearly under the influence, what does the staff member do in that situation? Whether that falls within health and safety or it falls in another procedure, just to reference it. But similarly with members, although we aren't employees, I think we have to abide by these rules, and I would like to see something that reached out to us to say, we either support it and sign up to it, or there is something in there that could be done by a member of staff if they felt a member was under the influence of either drink or drugs, to both protect themselves and to make sure that any other safety issues are concerned. And I know it's more work, John, I'm sorry about that, but
Right.
I think it's important to try and get it right. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Denise.
I've
I'll just I can see you back, Chair, and we're actually on the alcohol and drugs procedure, and it's Ron Arundel had his hand up first, and then followed by Brian.
Right, so Ron first then.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, as Eric will bear out, for quite some time, anybody in the construction industry on sites or shipyards or whatever, this, that, and the other, it's been mandatory that people are obliged to be tested at random for both drugs and alcohol. It's a safety issue, and I don't see why the council should operate any differently, particularly those people who drive heavy vehicles such as that. So I don't know why we're having a struggle with this. Why we can't implement this? It's all about preventing people having accidents and stopping people coming to work topped up with either alcohol or drugs, and they know that they can be tested at any time without any sort of forewarning, and it just keep people on their toes. So thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. And who was next? It was Brian, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think as an organisation, I think it would be nice to see that anybody that is associated with Middlesbrough Council, whether that be elected member, the mayor, the chief executive, any member of staff, would be subject to the same procedure. I think the only issues that we have from a union perspective is that whatever procedure, whatever policy we have in place could not be used as a tool by management to pick on certain people. And I think that's because you know, that we will get members that are going, well, why have I been tested 5 times this week? Yeah, he hasn't, and he's your mate. That's, you know, and I think that that's something that John's already aware of, really. So, but yeah, I think it would be nice to see that elected members would be subject to the same testing as we are, and randoming. It just, you know, then we can tell staff, doesn't matter, you've been asked, you know, and you could be in the same room as Denise, waiting to get tested or whatever, you know.
I think.
Ron, sorry.
Sorry, Chair.
Who was next? Was it
That's me, Chair.
Jeff? You come next, and then Ron.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was just to try and reassure Brian that I think we've had in some previous discussions that it wouldn't be down to a line manager to pick people out. I think there'd be a robust system in place so that people aren't seen as being victimised, you know. So we would have something in place that somebody couldn't be targeted, you know, in relation to that. And it's something you and I, Brian, and Paul from Unison would make sure that stood up to that robustness and wasn't used as a tool to out somebody from the organisation.
Ron, did you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. I don't think it's about attacking people's personal habits. It's about safety. And it's obviously stands to reason to me. Somebody driving a bin wagon is more likely to cause an accident than somebody, you know, sat in an office working a computer. So, you know, we've got to be sensible about this, you know, and people shouldn't feel touchy-feely about it all, because they've got to accept the fact that people handling, you know, large piece of machinery that are liable to cause accidents should accept the fact that they should be open to testing. You know, I think it would be nonsense to try and test somebody, you know, a councillor who's come to the council for a meeting. Why? What's the point? That's not a safety issue. Thank you.
Any other comments on that?
I was just gonna
Yeah, sorry,
agree.
yeah, sorry,
I was just going to agree with Councillor Arundel.
We're getting feedback, I think, on this. I think the thing about drugs is that we're going to have no option. I think if we don't do that and we have an accident, we're going to lay ourselves open to civil liability and criminal liability if we don't test people. I think it's a very good point that's made about everybody should be tested. I know it will cause a few eruptions, but on the other hand, there is an argument there, very difficult one to get away from. It should apply to everybody. Maybe that's something we have to give a bit of thought to. Bran.
And by testing everybody, then that help and support that may be required can be offered. Is the policy also looking at, because at the moment, if I have a road traffic accident and the police attend, the first thing they do is they automatically breathalyze me. So is that something that the policy is looking at? You know, if somebody's had an accident, then that is part of the procedure?
Potentially. I mean, it would depend on the situation, wouldn't it? You know what I mean? I think they'd have to have just cause for testing somebody.
Well,
at the moment we haven't got the ability to test because we haven't got any testing equipment.
Right.
So it's kind of looking at the beginning of the process. I mean, the beginning of the process isn't necessarily to catch anybody out. It's you know, part of it is to say, look, you know, let's have a bit of training on it. Let's provide a bit of training on awareness so that people might not recognise that they've got a problem. And if they have got a problem and they recognise it, as a caring employee, we want to basically offer them support. And you know, we think that we've covered most of the requirements of the policy, but there are difficulties. I mean, I can understand like both ways of looking at this. One would be have a blanket cover across the organisation, but there are obvious costs associated with that, especially if we're using external testers. Whereas, you know, you could look at the other side, you could look at it from another point of view and say, well, look, should we concentrate on the high risk areas, which you know, safety critical equipment, that type of thing, but make sure that we've got robust procedures in place to ensure that it is random when we carry out random testing, rather than, you know, there's a lot to consider. I mean, it's not you know, from the powers that be, it's not an easy decision to make to get it right. And I think we just need a little bit more time to basically review what we are putting forward, have a bit of discussion on it so that we know that we've got it right, bring it back to this forum once we think we've got it right, and then implement it.
But one thing that would be useful, John, is to see how it's done in other councils as a comparative.
Yeah.
If we could get that information, that would be quite useful.
Yeah.
Paul Thompson, I think, had a question. Paul?
Hi, yes, cheers, Chair. I mean, I totally agree with the testing and keeping the public safe and our staff safe, and I think it's the right thing to do. The only sort of kind of worry is for those people who are maybe taking some form of medication for a medical condition that might test positive. How do we deal with that sort of situation going forward? Because I think we suspect we will have the one or two.
Yeah. Again, I don't know if I've got a bit of feedback there, but basically that is captured within the procedure. So what you can have is false positives if you've been on certain prescription medication and stuff like that. But you know, when you're getting tested, you would probably need to declare that if you're on any prescription medication, so they could rule out any false positives.
I think we'll have to bring this to. Sorry, go on. Did you want to come back on that, Paul?
No, sorry, I was just going to say thanks for that. Cheers.
Okay. I
Okay.
think we'll have to bring this item to close. I know it's something that we'll need to discuss in future, but I'm just conscious of the time. We've got an item to come, which is the action register. And I wonder if, John, you can take us through the action register and let us know any of the crucial aspects we need to be aware of.
Okay, Michelle, would you just like to share the action register, please?
Sorry, John, you'll have to wait. I'll have to get it up. Sorry.
Okay, it's okay.
If you've got a problem, we've got it on paper, haven't we? Most people have got it. Have you got a problem, Michelle?
No, it's just I didn't realise I was getting it up. I've had to go into Objective and then I'll have to save it to my desktop so I can open and share the content.
Have other people got a copy of this? If you've got a pop, I mean, if people have got a copy of it, we can probably just refer to the copy that we've got. Are people happy with that?
Yes, Chair, but can I
Yeah.
just make it aware that the trade unions have got another corporate meeting, a joint trade union meeting commencing at 11:30.
Yeah, that's why I was wanting to get through
Oh,
this very
thank you,
quickly.
Chair.
So
Thank you.
let's move quickly on to this and just use the actual information.
Right,
that
bear
we
with
got
me.
sent through to us. Given the time, John, do you want to say a little bit about it straight off while Michelle's getting it sorted? Any key areas we need to be aware of?
Key areas, obviously, you know, we know that I know that Jeff's attended the previous meeting to give an update on the Transporter Bridge. He has given an update on, you know, why he was unable to attend. So basically, I think he did receive an invite, and he's basically asked Dave Jameson to attend, and Dave's been unable to attend, basically.
I think we've got it on the screen, have we now?
Yeah.
Yeah, just need to go up a little bit, I think. Okay, yep. Far away, John.
no, the meeting's gone off.
I think it has, hasn't it? Yeah.
Where's it gone?
Yeah, just leave it for
It's
the moment. I
gone.
think we may run out of time on this. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of problems on.
Michelle, is everything all right? What do you mean?
It seems to have got. I seem to have.
I think we've got problems with the meeting going off.
Yeah, it's got.
Oh, well, it's still connected and we're still
Is it
live,
still
Chair.
connected?
Yeah, we're still live,
I've just got
Chair.
nothing on my
Right,
screen
okay.
at the moment.
Oh, okay, no problem. Well, we're still live, Chair, so there's
So,
no issue
is-
on
is
my
John-
side.
Is John still there? Is John still there?
I think John's experiencing some technical issues. I
Yeah,
don't
I
think
think-
he's
I think-
responding here. I don't know whether you want this, whether you want to defer the item, Chair,
I
to the
think
next
we may have
meeting.
to, given
Yeah.
the time. I
Okay.
think we may have to defer the item to the next time. I'm sorry about that, but we're obviously going to run out of time, and it does seem to be a bit of a nuisance. Have we got any other business that anybody wants to raise? That's before any other business.
None
Because
from
I
me,
haven't got
Chair.
anything.
No.
Sorry? No? Well, I think that that's basically everything except the action register. I can give John a couple of minutes, see whether we can get back on. But I know we're going to be short of time otherwise.
That's what I was thinking, Chair.
Sorry?
I was thinking about the time, obviously with the trade unions as well.
Yeah, I think you may be right. I think what we'll do then, if people are happy, is we'll defer this item to the next meeting. As I think we've still not got Jan back. And can I thank everybody for coming? And also, when I get a chance, I'll thank John for all the work that he's done in getting everything up. And of course, we will make the action those points that I raised at the beginning of the meeting, and make sure that an email goes to relevant parties. So, can I thank everybody for their attendance? Thanks very much. And of course,
Chair.
the next meeting you'll be informed of when that comes on. Thanks very much.
Thank you, David. Thank
That's
you.
everything. Thanks
Bye
very
now.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Take care.
gentlemen.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.